Okay, so I see the 31-man All Black squad has been announced for the 2019 World Cup, and there were a few surprises, but when you think about it, maybe not that big a deal. The front row, obviously, the clear omission is Owen Franks, having played 108 tests for the All Blacks. He's been the anchor for the All Black scrum for about 7, 8 years now, so his omission is a pretty big deal. But when you think about it, he hasn't played a lot of rugby this year, and in the games that he has played for the All Blacks, he hasn't played very well, and the scrum hasn't been functioning that well either. And when you consider he's not much of a ball carrier, then he doesn't really offer much for the All Blacks. Whereas the other props, particularly the Polynesian props, they offer a lot in terms of running the ball, and they've shown their quality in the scrum. So in the end, not a big surprise, and unfortunately Owen Franks misses out. But he has been a part of 2 All Black World Cup squads, so hasn't missed out entirely. The hookers select themselves. The locks, I'm really glad that Patrick Tuipulotu has been included in the team. I think partly they need 4 locks because of Retallick's injury, but also Patrick Tuipulotu's performance against Australia at Eden Park was fantastic, probably the best that he's had as an All Black. So he certainly deserves the selection there. For the loose forwards, it was always going to be an interesting one. Like, were they going to select Liam Squire? Were they going to go with Vaifafita? Or what were they going to do? And as Hansen has alluded to, Liam Squire has made himself available as a replacement if needed. So that seems to make more sense. And Luke Jacobson has shown what he can do, and they seem to have a lot of confidence in his ability, playing on the side of the scrum and also as number 8 if required. And he's a strong player, good tackler. And Vaifafita, I think he misses out because he's more of an athlete. And the All Black scrum needs engines, they don't need athletes. Halfbacks, they select themselves. First fives was always going to be a interesting one for me. Were they going to select 2 or 3 first fives? Because if they only select 2, that means Beauden Barrett and Richie Mo'unga have to be a part of every single World Cup game. And you don't necessarily want them to be lining up against Namibia or Canada and risk injury when you want them for the big games. But maybe that means they'll bring in someone else that hasn't played really first 5 and bring him in, maybe a Geordie Barrett or something, put in that first 5 for one of those minor games against Namibia or Canada. And so Mo'unga and Beauden Barrett don't have to play every game. So it'll be interesting to see how they go there. Although Steve Hansen did say that he doesn't see Geordie Barrett as a first 5 or even a midfielder, to be honest. So I wonder what they're going to do there. Outside backs, they all select themselves. There's no surprises there. Sevu Reece and George Bridge punched their ticket to the World Cup with their performance against Australia at Eden Park. No surprise there. And of course, the incumbents, Rieko Ioane and Ben Smith, are there. Question is, will they be incumbents come the World Cup time? I guess we'll have to see. But the big issue for me comes in the midfield. We've got 5 really good midfielders, but we can only select 4. And of course, it really came down to Ryan Crotty and Nani Laumape. And unfortunately, Laumape misses out, which is really stink because Ryan Crotty has not played a single test match for the All Blacks this year. He actually hasn't even played much for the Crusaders. His last game was the semi-final of the Super Rugby this year because he had another injury. Now, when selectors and coaches are thinking about players for their squad, there are 4 things that they should have in mind before they select them, other than they obviously have talent. And let's face it, everyone in the squad has talent. There's others that didn't make the team that have unbelievable talent. But we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on these 4 things. The first one is versatility. Does the player play more than one position? Now, Ryan Crotty is a midfielder. He plays second 5 or centre, but these days it's pretty much the same thing. So, no, he's not versatile. Whereas Laumape plays wing. He even played wing in his rugby league days because he has speed and he has strength. He has a good fend. He has a good shoulder bump off. So he can play both midfield and the wing if required. So versatility, that go one for Laumape. Second one is experience. Now, clearly, Ryan Crotty has more experience. He's got 44 tests compared to Laumape's 13. However, in terms of World Cup experience, Crotty has none. He wasn't selected in 2015 because we had guys like Ma'anonu and Conrad Smith and Sonny Bill and Malachi Fekitoa. So he doesn't have any World Cup experience. And sometimes experience can be overrated too, because sometimes your mind or your body is unable to do what your mind wants it to do. Anyway, enough about that. Thirdly, endurance. Can a player get through a World Cup campaign? And from the evidence we've seen the last 2 years, Ryan Crotty can't. He's had concussion issues, he's had hamstring issues, and now he's had a broken thumb. So no, Ryan Crotty can't. So that's why I've given him a nickname, Ryan Rehab Crotty. And Laumape has been generally healthy the last season or two, playing for the Hurricanes and also playing for the All Blacks. Whenever he's been selected, he's done a great job. He hasn't got hurt, and he's been fantastic for the All Blacks. He has done no wrong. And fourthly, is the player, and do they have an X factor about them? Ryan Crotty is a solid, stable guy. He's a guy that will, he'll hit it up, he'll get tackled, he'll lay it back for his teammates. On defense, he'll make his tackles, he won't let you down, he won't miss tackles. So he's solid. But he's not an X factor player. He's not the kind of guy that could bump off 4 players and run 80 meters and score a brilliant try and open the game wide open. He's not that kind of player. Laumape is. I mean, when you think what Julian Savia did to the French in the quarterfinal in the last World Cup, Laumape could do that. He's shown that he could do that. He can run 50 meters. He can bump off players. He's such a strong and athletic player that you need him in the team. But they've gone with Ryan Rehab Crotty because of his experience and because he's solid. Sometimes, Steve Hansen, you just got to take a little bit of a risk. You've got to go for someone that could perform and could do those brilliant things, as opposed to a guy that you know what you're getting with him. He'll be solid. He'll be great. Laumape, I feel very bad for him because I think he's deserving of a place in the World Cup. But because he's not Ryan Crotty, and for some reason, I don't know really what the reason is. I think it's mainly experience that he doesn't get the nod. And I am annoyed and frustrated that that is the case. But I actually thought that was going to be the case, that he would miss out. And it's a real shame because we might lose him to New Zealand rugby. He might go overseas now and think, stuff this. Oh, waiting to make the All Black World Cup squad, hopefully, and he doesn't make it. So he could be gone to All Black rugby. So I hope in his case that somehow he could maybe be a part of the World Cup if injuries happen. Now, I don't want injuries to happen, but if they do, I hope that Laumape somehow gets an opportunity in the World Cup because he was robbed. Just like, I won't go into previous World Cup games, but he was robbed. And I think he's deserving of better.